Hey, I have a question, a point of order.
Yes, sir.
Both of us get to talk about a topic? Like I get to respond to Ray on a topic?
You can do whatever you like. It's your segment, as we've said.
I don't know that I like that, Pat. I thought that I would be able to.
Yeah, but think of it this way, Ray. You can respond to me when I talk about it.
I don't want to respond to you.
Okay. Put it in writing, Ray. Put it in writing.
Do not be alarmed. It's just a couple of guys. Who are these guys? Ray Regina, beloved former mayor of St. Charles, lifetime educator, and Pat Crimmins, a Geneva lawyer, but he's actually okay. From Elgin to Aurora, from Naperville to Elburn, these guys are gonna talk everything. So, here's Pat and Ray.
Hello, friends. Yes, it is just a couple of guys. Pat Crimmins and yours truly, Ray Regina, talking everything to our great listeners. Everyone that I know enjoys a great meal. And Pat and I have been making reference to our love of quality cuisine. Today, we have chosen to enter the arena of fine dining and invited Chef Chris Curren of the Graceful Ordinary restaurant in downtown St. Charles, hard by the rambling Fox River, to join us for a conversation about his philosophy, his creativity, and his presentation of culinary delights to a sophisticated dining public. Chris will join us in a bit, but when we return, Pat and I, with the help of producer Paul Stuckel, will introduce a new segment, the Rando Wheel. Stay tuned.
At McNally Heating and Cooling, we understand that customer satisfaction starts with arriving at your home on time. Your service technician will apply the same attention to detail and quality workmanship to every job, large or small. We offer upfront, honest pricing, and we'll make sure the job gets done right from start to finish. From furnace and air conditioning service, minor repairs, or total equipment replacement, we do it all. Give us a call or find us online and let the luck of the Irish work for you.
Hello, friends. This is Ray Regina. I've been talking about my good friend Bob Karras and how great his Rookies restaurants are. But today, I want to talk about two other Karras Restaurant Group venues, the Village Squire Restaurants and Old Republic Kitchen and Bar. Beginning Monday, September 12th, and lasting all month, the Village Squire Restaurants in Elgin, Dundee, McHenry, and Crystal Lake will be celebrating Greek Fest with delicious, authentic Greek dishes like souvlaki, gyros, pistachio, and of course my favorite, saganaki, hoopa, and lots more. So head on down to the Village Squire and get your Greek on. And starting Friday, September 16th, at Old Republic Kitchen and Bar in Elgin, Oktoberfest comes early with corn dogs, bratwurst, and of course, das Schnitzel. Wash it down with beers from their beer garden in souvenir beer steins. Achtung! So take advantage of the season and head on over to the Village Squire Restaurants and Old Republic Kitchen and Bar. I'll see you there. We are back and very anxious and ready to introduce a new segment, the Rando Wheel.
Rando.
Rando. Rando. Rando. Rando.
What is it, Ray?
This is a very interesting creation, and I'm surprised you asked that question because you're the one who created it, so to speak. It's just your idea, Pat. But I don't think that either one of us trust each other to run this thing. So let's bring in our master of ceremonies to run the Rando Wheel.
It's a union job,
great
Ray.
Producer Paul Stuckel. Paul.
Hello, everybody. How you doing, gentlemen?
We're fine.
Well, this is good. This is good. So this is the inaugural.
Can we call you Ringmaster?
You can call me anything you like. Just don't call me late for dinner. Thank you. I will be mastering this particular ceremony, as it were. And it is the Rando Wheel, the brainchild of one Patrick Crimmins, as you have been led to believe. And therefore, all of the success or failure of said segment rests on Pat.
And sponsorships.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll see that. We'll see. Let's get through this one first. So here's how it works, folks. We have a big wheel. It is called the Rando Wheel, oddly enough. It has 10 topics of great interest, I'm sure, to everybody. I will ease your mind by letting you know that we will not go through all 10 topics. I will spin the wheel, and we'll start with Ray, and Ray will then have to extemporaneously discuss said topic, and we'll see what happens. We'll see how quickly the guys think on their feet, and maybe a couple of laughs, and maybe some embarrassment. That's all that I'm looking for.
Hey, I have a question. Point of order.
Yes, sir.
Both of us get to talk about a topic. Like I get to respond to Ray on a topic.
You can do whatever you like. It's your segment, as we said.
I don't know that I like that, Pat. I thought that I would be able to.
Yeah, but think of it this way, Ray. You can respond to me when I talk about.
I don't want to respond to you.
Okay. Put it in writing, Ray. Put it in writing.
If you respond to me, Pat, and which I hope you don't, but if you do, I'll reserve the right to respond after your answer. Let's put it that way, since I'm the leadoff guy here.
I can't imagine it would be fun if you were just talking about an issue without a response. But we'll give it a shot.
One thing I know about you, you always like that rebuttal. Anyway, all right.
Okay, well,
that's the best part of an argument.
The only person who cannot respond is me. So, and I think you're both grateful for that. So
but the ringmaster
or graceful, as the case may be.
As is the case may be. So
yeah, it's ordinary.
The way this works, folks, is I'm about to spin the wheel, and we will come up with a subject for Ray to begin. Here we go. And we have got our first topic. Ray, this is for you. Do you think it is time for Reinsdorf, the owner of the White Sox and Bulls, to sell said White Sox or Bulls, given the lack of success in recent decades?
Well, that's a very interesting question. And what comes to mind when Jerry Reinsdorf comes up is that, first of all, he has delivered 7 world championships to the city of Chicago, 6 with the Bulls, 1 with the White Sox. And number 2, being the capitalist that I am, for me to say he should or should not, it's his property and he should be entitled to do what he very well pleases. Now, thinking about that further, though, as a fan, I'm kind of fed up with Jerry Reinsdorf. And here are some reasons why. 1, with the Bulls, yes, 6 world championships, but never without controversy, never without a contract issue. Pippi, even Jordan had the cheap contract to start with. They paid him off at the end, though, pretty well. And then, of course, the infamous after 6, he let Krause really tear it apart. Krause was his guy, and Krause never liked Jackson. That always kind of bugged me. Let's go to the White Sox for a second. Always, he was quoted as saying once in a while, he said it more than once, that finishing second's not terrible because you're still in the race for the most part. And if we finish second, so what? I remember that line. And I also know that he brought La Russa back in, a guy who I think needed to go out and like most of us do after you accomplish something, go out and pass it along to the next individual. But he brings La Russa back because I think the guilt complex he had from the firing him the first time, and they're friends. So he tried that and didn't work. And this last part here where the Sox just folded its tent, it was an embarrassment in my opinion. And as a fan, I'm still pretty angry about it. So Yeah, on a personal basis, I think I'd like to see new ownership, maybe excitement that would inject the Bulls. The Bulls are a good team. They could be great. The White Sox are the best team in Chicago, at least currently, and yet I'm not really certain that they'll go to another level under him.
Well, if I may, yeah, he did deliver championships, but he had a guy named Jordan help him in that regard. Yes, the Sox and the Cubs are his property, but I think at the end of the day,
Sox and the Bulls, Pat.
Sox and the Bulls.
Freudian slip.
The Sox and the Bulls are his property, but he had so many opportunities, I think, with the White Sox here to kind of augment the lineup or add some spice or get that left-handed bat or that pitcher, and he didn't do it. You complain about that 𝐂𝐡𝐞�爾trade. At least the Cubs did something, I think, trying in that window to make themselves better. I think the White Sox got a little lazy thinking that they had the goods. And, I thought they had the goods, but at the end of the day, they didn't. And I think it became apparent kind of mid-season that they didn't, and they didn't really do anything about it. So that's historically my problem with Reinsdorf is he's relatively cheap when it comes to that kind of thing. I would like to see a guy by the name of Jordan by the White Sox. I think that would open up the town a little bit. As to the Bulls, we've got some injuries. We've got some things. I think we're on the right course. It's a lot easier to manage a basketball team than it is a baseball team. But I would like to see him sell the White Sox.
All right. So there you go. We have now established precedent that one partner will argue with the other partner on the subject. That's outstanding. Oh, and by the way, point of order, as any Cubs fan knows, the name was Quintana.
What did I say?
You said 𝐂𝐡𝐞𝐼𝐬 or something like that. I don't know.
I'm sorry.
𝐂𝐡𝐞𝐼𝐬.
Of course,
it's fine. It's fine.
There's an explanation for that, but I won't say it.
I'm sure there is, Pat. Yeah, that explanation is that you're actually an Oakland fan, right?
Huh?
So next on the wheel, here we go.
I love the sound of the wheel.
I do too. Okay. And we have arrived at, we have just been told that we have won an all expenses trip, flight, hotel, 3 meals and transportation in and around the city to one of these 3 cities for 4 days and 3 nights. New Orleans, San Diego, or Washington, D.C. Insert sound of bullets. Which of these 3 do you select, and the reasons for selecting one of the other over the other 2? Patrick?
Oh, this is my question.
This is your question.
Well, this is relatively easy for me because I've been to all 3 places. So New Orleans, Africa hot, Vietnam wet, wonderful food.
Sounds great so far there, Pat.
Wonderful drink. But it rained when we were there. I was there for a seminar, and of course, went to class and did all the stuff that you're supposed to do. When we were there, it rained so hard and so fast. It was 7 inches of rain within an hour and a half. The raindrops were as big as I've ever seen, but the humidity is something I can't deal with. So New Orleans, I love you. Great food, étouffée. Great entertainment, jazz, you're out. San Diego, been there also with a seminar, spent a week by the highway, and it rained the entire week. But because I did live in California, we did go to San Diego, and it is a beautiful city. But, sun can be overrated, especially if you have Irish skin, and so we're gonna skip San Diego as well, and I will go once again to my capital, I'll see my man, Abraham Lincoln, as he sits pontificating, and be a part of the most beautiful city that serves as a capital in the United States of America. And that's an easy choice for me. I love Washington. I love the hubbub. I love the activity. I love all the noise in the restaurants of lobbyists doing their best. And again, just everything historical in Washington, seeing all the documents, preserved in their in their place appropriately. So that's an easy one for me, right?
Well, I've been to all three as well many times, and with respect to New Orleans and Washington, both, and they're not. I don't want to. I would like to go there, but to the question at hand, which is your favorite? I want to take San Diego. Washington, very busy. New Orleans, very busy in terms of things to do and so on and so forth. The climates are in the summertime are both atrocious as far as both Washington and New Orleans are concerned. So I'd be concerned about when I'm going there. I think about San Diego and I think about the fact that I'm out there and I don't have to worry about the temperature. It's pretty much the same throughout the whole year. It's a rarity in the summertime that it's 90. It's a rarity in the wintertime that it's below freezing. So I'm not worried about that. I love the mountains. I love the desert. I love the ocean. I like the fine dining. The rain that you've alluded to is rare. I don't think I've ever been in San Diego. It's rained, but not to say it doesn't rain there. It has on occasion. But for me, that would be the garden spot to go for. As the question said, I went on a 4-day, 3-night trip there. That's where I'm going for R&R. The other, that's not to demean the other two for a variety of different reasons, because your Washington description is very clear.
And there you have it. Well, we've established one thing, and that is Pat will only travel if he's going to a seminar. So
that's right. On somebody else's dime. Exactly.
Well, I didn't want to say it that way.
That's not necessarily true. Thank you.
So very well. The Rando Wheel will return. We will have additional subjects at that time. Hopefully some of them will be a little bit more revelatory, as it were. Try to get them a little bit more personal about Pat and Ray. As you know, they're very interesting guys, and you need to know what's going on with them. So I will endeavor to make sure that those subjects get included. But it's all up to the wheel, and we will leave it at that, and look forward to the next round. Ray,
Ringmaster is blowing his whistle.
Prepare to be moved. We are the Fox Valley Auto Group. Both our Volkswagen and Buick GMC dealerships are located here in St. Charles, and we're proud to serve our community. As a recipient of the BBB Torch Award for Ethics, we are dedicated to ensuring quality first, always upholding uncompromised integrity, being customer-focused, and seeking continual improvement. Stop in today or visit our website at foxvalleyautogroup.com.
We are back, and very pleased to have the executive chef and the owner of the Graceful Ordinary in St. Charles, Chris Curren, is joining our podcast. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. I'm really excited to be here.
We are excited to have you. As I said in the introduction, this is our first venture into a discussion of food in any detail. So, I think I can speak for the producer and for Pat that we are foodies. We like good food, so this should be interesting. I want to start by asking you just briefly to talk to our audience about your background as a chef, becoming a chef, your previous restaurants, and then maybe even hatching the Graceful Ordinary conceptually.
Sure. So I'm from Ohio originally, the Cleveland area. I went to the same high school that Michael Simon of Iron Chef fame, or the Chew fame, went to, albeit I was about 10 years after him. And it was a private all boys Catholic high school started by the Brothers of the Holy Cross, who also started the University of Notre Dame. And
Irish.
at that time, it was kind of, yeah, exactly. Go Irish. At that time, it was they kind of drove it into your head, go to college, major in business, medicine, or law, come back to Ohio, get married, have kids, send them to our high school. And so, I didn't really know that there was another path beyond that. So I graduated, I went to the University of Dayton in Dayton, Ohio, and I got my degree in pre-law with criminal justice as the basis for that, and realized somewhere between my junior and senior year in college that I had been working in food service, whether it was at restaurants during the summers or working for a beer distributor during the summertime, or, on campus in the food service halls, and really, had this passion for it. And I remember looking back at the first copy of the St. Edward Alumni magazine, and on the cover was Michael Symon, and it was when he opened his first restaurant. And that was really the first time that I realized, hey, this can be a career, right? Like, this isn't something that you just fall into. This can be something that I can do for a living and have a passion for. I grew up watching, Julia Child and Yan Can Cook and the Great Chefs of the West on PBS, and was cooking at home as soon as my parents kind of realized I was at that age where I wasn't going to burn the house down. And so that kind of drove me into the idea of going to culinary school. I wanted to graduate in case I needed my degree to fall back on. And I graduated and immediately went to Pennsylvania Culinary Institute, which at the time was the number 3 culinary school in the country, behind the Culinary Institute of America and Johnson & Wales. Worked in the Cleveland area, did my internship from culinary school at Jacobs Field in Cleveland, which is now Progressive Park, where the Cleveland Guardians play baseball. And then moved on to a couple different restaurants in the Cleveland area. The last one being kind of the most influential in my career, which is a restaurant called Three Birds in Lakewood, Ohio. And the owner of that restaurant was the nephew of Bonnie Bell. And they are a big cosmetic company out of the Cleveland area. They make that flavored chapstick, like the Dr. Pepper chapstick, lip smackers. And so he kind of opened this restaurant. And when they opened in 2003, they were top 20 best restaurants in America in Esquire magazine, and really kind of the only ones besides Michael Symon being talked about in the Cleveland food scene. And I was a sous chef there, and then ended up running the kitchen after the executive chef left for a little bit. And I was looking around, and I was 26 years old. And, I was like, where do I go from here to learn more and grow more? Cleveland, that was kind of the pinnacle of what I could do there. And I had a friend who had just moved to Chicago, and he said, hey man, come out, sleep on my couch, get a job, see if, you think you can do it in a real food town. And I quickly learned that with my first job, in the city, that I did have what it took, and I could cook at the level that I wanted to. And that was 2006, came out here. And then in 2008, that same friend and I opened up a restaurant in River North, a little 40-seat restaurant called Blue 13. And it was very critically acclaimed, but never very financially viable. We opened in July of 2008, and obviously in October of 2008 is when the housing market crashed, and we were a small fish in a big pond, and really kind of treaded water for 4 years. And that is definitely the place where I built my reputation and I made my name. And we were in a lot of, not only local media, but national media for what we were doing there. But at some point, if you're not financially viable, you gotta just decide to close the doors. And so we did. And from there, I went on to a number of different places in the Chicagoland area. I worked with the 50/50 group as a corporate chef for a little bit. I was the opening executive chef at Seven Lions on Michigan Avenue, which was Alpana Singh from Check Please. It was her second restaurant. Then I went for where I was up until opening the Graceful Ordinary. I was at Fulton Market Kitchen in the Fulton Market District for 5, almost 6 years. And then COVID hit, and we were both my wife and I, who is also my business partner and does events and in front of the house for the restaurant. We're kind of in flux. We were not knowing what was going to happen with COVID. We didn't know if the restaurant industry was going to come back. We didn't know what our next step was going to be. This is the only thing that either of us have ever done for our careers. And we had a mortgage, and we have two wonderful children who are 9, and our daughter turns 7 tomorrow, actually. And so we were at some friends of ours who live here in St. Charles, having a cookout. It was May of 2020, and we got a phone call from a mutual friend of ours and with our business partners. And she said, "Hey, I've got these friends who bought this building in downtown St. Charles, knowing that we had been looking out here for a couple of years already, to try to do something closer to home, instead of commuting from here to the city." And she said, "Do you want to talk to them?" And then here we are. This is 2.5 years later, and here we are, with almost a year underneath our belt.
You land in this old bank building right on the river in downtown St. Charles, and now you're faced redoing and creating the decor of the restaurant. Talk a bit about that.
Yeah, so it was very important to us to keep the historical kind of feel of the building, not to change it, because it's been such a part of the downtown community in St. Charles for so long, since it was built in the 1960s. But we also wanted to soften it a little bit. It was a mid-century modern building. It still is a mid-century modern building. And our concept here at the restaurant is an upscale American tavern, but more of a modern interpretation of a colonial style tavern. We've got a 12-foot wood-fired hearth that we do most of our cooking over. And we kind of bring in flavor influences from, the 3 kind of mainstay cooking styles in America. So you've got, New England, you've got Southern cuisine, and then you've got kind of the West Coast cuisine. And so we wanted to mix that, that old world feel with the mid-century modern, design of the original building. And so we kind of took the building as it was, left a lot of the curves and everything, and just we wanted to open it up a little bit more. We wanted to bring in more light. We wanted to bring in more visuals of the river, because we have the luxury of being right directly on the river. And so we worked with a design firm in Chicago, D&K, who have done a number of high-end restaurants in the Chicagoland area and elsewhere, to help kind of bring our vision to fruition. And so you've got a nice mix of, on the exterior, you've got, kind of the cement and stucco, and the hard lines of what a mid-century modern building would be. And then that's softened a little bit with a lot of plant life. We did a white and black checkered tile out there, kind of hearkening down to what you would find in New Orleans or in Charleston or Savannah, Georgia, and kind of wrap around the balcony all the way around and the terrace all the way around the space. And then on the interior of the space, you find more warmth, hardwoods, textured wallpaper, a lot of curtains and shears, big chandeliers, things like that. We've got a lovely fireplace lounge that's got, leather furniture and very comfortable elements, because we knew that the exterior of the building was going to be a draw. Being on the river, being on the terrace in the summertime was going to get people to want to sit out there. But we also wanted it to be comfortable in the colder months that we obviously have here in, Northern Illinois. And so we really wanted to make both indoor and outdoor spaces feel warm and inviting regardless of the time of year.
What's the story behind the naming of the restaurant?
Well, the name comes again from that colonial era. So during colonial times, taverns were an integral part of any community. It was where people went to eat and dine, and travelers could rest. But it was also where you got your news of the day, where you got your social interaction. It was the courthouse. It was the theater. It was, all those places wrapped into one. And that was the center of the community, and where people went, prior to having daily newspapers or information, where they could meet travelers from other places and find out what was going on in the world. And it's really that kind of tradition that we are trying to keep and revive. And so one of the names for the town tavern in colonial times was also known as the town's ordinary. And so that's where the term ordinary in the name, the Graceful Ordinary, comes from. And now while we are, we want to be that for the community of St. Charles, we want to be the place where people want to come and celebrate and to come together as family or friends who haven't seen each other in a long time, where, they can look back 20 years from now and say, that's kind of been the staple of where our family has always dined for, important occasions or just everyday sort of thing. We were creating that in a sense, but at a higher level, at a more refined level, which is where the graceful part comes in.
Define fine dining.
Yeah. So I think fine dining is refined dining. So there is an idea that upper level restaurants have to be a little bit stuffy, which we don't want. We want this to be a place that people feel like they can come every day, and it's supposed to be a little bit boisterous and loud and rambunctious to a certain extent. But that doesn't mean that the level of dining should not be at a certain level. Our level of service should be a little bit higher. We should be anticipating guest needs instead of reacting to guest needs. We should be, we use a higher quality of ingredient, which comes with a little bit more elevated cost. We put a lot more time and care into how we process those ingredients, how we cook them, how we impart flavors onto them. And I think that that's really the definition of fine dining, is when you have a group of people who are trying to take things and make them the best possible product that they can be in an environment where all of your needs are taken care of and thought of and done in a almost seamless manner. From a service standpoint, we always talk to our staff about, a server should never want for anything, but also never notice that the server is bringing it to them.
I think you've articulated very well how you want the preparation and the presentation of your restaurant to be. But my question is really, can that be intimidating and challenging to certain customers?
I think it can be. There are definitely people that are excited about what we're doing and love it and are very much into it. And there are definitely people who expect us to be, the same style of restaurant that they've experienced throughout their entire lives. And so I think it's just, it comes down to personal preference. We're not for everybody. We're not trying to be for everybody. But I think also the intimidation factor comes down when we get the personalities behind our staff communicating and interacting with the guests. I think that all becomes less intimidating if people are walking in the door willing to see something different.
Patrick?
Yes, Chris, just a few things. That building that houses your restaurant used to be a bank historically in St. Charles. And
Yep.
It was my baseball sponsor when I was a young man. So I used to go to the bank a lot. And now certainly you've continued making that building iconic, and you should be congratulated for that. So the business has been around and open for about a year. That's correct?
Yeah, that is correct. We will be celebrating our 1-year anniversary on November 12th. And it's been better than we could have ever expected. Might help. Yeah.
What the kitchen itself? You talked a little bit about the fire or the oven, whatever you want to call that. I don't want to simplify it, but what other unique features do you have in your kitchen that helps you make these dishes?
It's really nothing too far out of the ordinary. We're using cooking techniques that have been around for thousands of years. We're literally cooking over open fire. And while that might seem different and challenging, in this modern era where people, have their stoves at home and are used to that, it really is just going back to things that have been done for thousands of years. And so, we don't do anything different. We don't have any, real special gadgets or tools. We cook with we cook with a lot of heart and soul and passion, and a lot of experience of, how to build flavors and how to do things and manipulate ingredients. That, our thing is we want to be approachable. And so we try to use ingredients that, the everyday person knows and understands. And then we try to do them in unique ways that maybe they haven't seen before. And that's really our only secret.
One other thing I wanted to ask before we get to a commercial break. You said that you've been in business for about a year. Have you been surprised by anything during the course of that year? Either in a good way or a bad way, as it relates to your restaurant in the city of St. Charles?
I would say that we're surprised every day. There's always things that come about, good and bad, that you never would have thought of. But let's stick with the positive. The biggest thing that we had kind of thought about and been told by other business owners in the community that we've become friendly with, but really just didn't even know how much it would impact us is just the people of this community and how much support that they have given us and how excited they are that we're here. We chose St. Charles originally when we first started looking in the area because we wanted to be in a place where not only could we, benefit, positively from the community as a business, but someplace that we could also work hard to reciprocate that benefit back into the community. We work a lot of local charities. We work with 𝐂𝐻𝐿's. We work a lot with the schools in the community, and we knew that we wanted of a community, not just a business within that community. And it has the love and support that we have been shown by everyone in St. Charles has been absolutely amazing. And I don't think we ever would have imagined how much it would help.
Yeah, that's my city. So we're going to take a commercial break, Chris. And when we get back, I want to talk a little bit more about your favorite dishes, the menu generally, customers' favorite dishes, and maybe what it is that you eat at home with your wife and family.
Sure.
So we're going to take this break, and we'll be back.
Hello, friends. This is Ray Rogina. Break out your inner adventure with a trip to St. Charles, Illinois. Explore the vast culinary options with diverse and stellar restaurants that deliver on quality and service. Take the self-guided St. Charles Brewery Tour, where you'll find a new world of craft beer flavors and experiences awaiting you. Travel down natural walkways, trails, and even the Fox River on a riverboat or kayak. Make memories at all the fun places for activity, shopping, and recreation. It's time for an adventure. Visit stcalliance.org to start yours today.
All right, we're back with Chris Curren of Graceful Ordinary. And we wanted to talk a little bit, as I said before the break, about some of your favorite dishes. You said that you have flavor influences from New England and the South and the West. What are your favorite dishes, if you have any?
I always tell people the same thing. I love every dish on our menu for about 2 weeks, and then I've seen it too many times, and I don't like it anymore. But that's part of the fun that we have here at the Graceful Ordinary. Is we're kind of always reinventing ourselves and changing and modifying. We're very seasonal, so if I had to pick some dishes right now, they're usually the newer dishes on the menu. We've got a really amazing short rib stuffed pasta that's coming on the menu in the next week or so. Yeah, we take that. We take short rib and we braise it, and then we mix it with duck fat and shallots and thyme, and grind that up, and then we use that as a stuffing for our pasta. One of the fan favorites that we're bringing back from last year, the colder months, is an acorn squash ravioli with a sage brown butter sauce. People love that. We've got a really nice hanger steak, which on the menu right now, which is kind of like the butcher's secret cut, because for a long time it was one of the throwaway cuts that butchers would pull out and take home to their families because nobody really knew about it. But it's the second most tender cut of meat on the cow behind the fillet, behind the tenderloin. And we marinate that in pineapple juice, and then that gets served with confit, fingerling potatoes, and wax beans that are tossed in a black garlic vinaigrette. And, one of the surprise dishes for me that I put on the menu from the very beginning, and it's one of our best sellers that I didn't realize was going to be, is our octopus carpaccio. And so that's octopus tentacles that we braise and then cool and slice it very, very thin, and serve that with a lemon pudding, pickled mustard seeds, house-made chili crunch, extra virgin olive oil. Yeah. And it's one of those things where, I think it's one of the dishes that's kind of really pushing us in the direction that we're taking the menu right now, where I think we didn't realize how much our guests out here wanted to be challenged by more interesting ingredients. And so, we look at that and the feedback that we get from people, because we're always constantly looking at both positive and negative reviews, feedback that we get from guests when they're in the dining room, to try to make ourselves better. And one of the overarching themes is that maybe we're a little bit too approachable in some things. A lot of our a lot of the dishes that we thought would be a little bit more intimidating to guests are the ones that they're going for more. And so we're kind of pushing in that direction a little bit more, as we move into the fall and winter months.
So the St. Charles palate generally is sophisticated enough for Graceful Ordinary?
I mean, I think, that was, to be honest with you, that's one of the reasons that we targeted St. Charles in general, was because, St. Charles and its proximity to, the city, we're only 45, 50 minutes away from downtown Chicago. You have a lot of people who either work in Chicago or have worked in the past in Chicago, who do business meetings in Chicago, who is close enough for them to go down and have a good meal while being far enough away that if they have a restaurant of that caliber in their backyard, they're going to choose to stay home in their own town and go to that place. And that's kind of what drew us here. And so, yeah, absolutely. And it's not just St. Charles, it's the whole Tri-Cities area. Sure. We look at St. Charles, Geneva, Batavia as one big community. And I think that is the positive that allows us to do what we do here, sure. Where this might not work in other communities.
So at home, I take it you're boiling hot dogs for the kids, or what are we doing?
Yeah, you got that right. It's funny. That's one of the most common questions that I get. And I, like most every other professional chef, don't do a lot of cooking at home. And when I do cooking at home, it is usually something very simple, whether it's, I think the most extravagant that we get at home is a couple of years ago for Christmas, my wife got me a portable wood-fired pizza oven for outside. And so my kids' favorite thing is when I make handmade pizzas in the oven in the backyard. That's their thing. So
I can't speak for Ray, but I'm sure we could come over and help you with those.
I think you probably
I can speak for Pat on that. I know that.
Now, as it relates, going back to the food and the preparation of the food for the restaurant, do you get some ingredients locally, or where do you go for that?
Yeah, so we work with a lot of local farmers. We get a few of our proteins from Slagle Farms, which is in Fairbury, Illinois, which is about 2 hours south down Route 47, kind of in central Illinois. But even more locally, we work with a couple farmers. We work with Nichols Farm in Marengo, which is right up next to Hampshire and Huntley in that area. And then we do have, so my wife grew up in Plato Center and went to Burlington Central High School, and a friend of hers from high school has a farm on Burlington Road. It's the Strom Farm. So if you're ever driving down Burlington Road, just south of the 47 Burlington Road roundabout there, you see a big produce flag. That's his farm there. And we work a lot with him, and he's got a couple of hoop houses that he does a number of things in. They've got about 20 or 30 acres back behind the road that you can't really see, where they do a lot of sweet corn. And then they've got some smaller gardens where, he even sometimes plants things specifically for us. And there's, a number of those types of little farms around here. Again, that's one of the great things about being out this way. St. Charles and is kind of that edge of civilization. Where going out west, you still have all the farm country.
A little bit country, a little bit rock and roll.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now I have to ask you. I just watched the show The Bear on Hulu. I'm sure you've heard about it. I'm sure you've talked about it. What are your thoughts? Realistic? It's pretty intense in that kitchen.
Yeah, it's that watching that show gave me PTSD for sure.
That's exactly.
It's extremely realistic. I can tell you that at some point in my career, I've gone through almost every single one of those scenarios, with the exception of maybe one of my coworkers pulling a handgun on someone. But it's extremely realistic. I think that the cinematography on it really gets that anxiety that is felt in the kitchen, because it is, in the episode you kind of see Carmi looking at the clock, and there's that intensity in how it's shot, where he's kind of going back and forth, and it's high in intensity. And that really is what we deal with every day. From the minute we walk in the door, we're looking at, where are my orders? Because everything comes down to being prepared and being ready to open at 4:00 for us. And so if we're not, we're constantly battling that clock. And then even during service, you're battling that clock because you don't want, guests start understanding like, hey, I've been waiting a long time for my meal. So, the anxiety of battling the clock, I think, was really well shown. And I think for outsiders, you can really get a little taste of the feeling that we get.
My son was a food runner at a competitor restaurant in a different town. He won't even watch it. He says it's too intense for him. It was a pleasure talking to you. Ray, you got some other questions?
Just a couple of final thoughts here, Chris. First of all, in fine dining, I think it's a known fact that wine is a very important part of the experience for many people. Two-part question. Do you have a sommelier? And how important are wine pairings?
We do have a sommelier. Dan Velsic is he's our assistant general manager and also our wine director. And he's a level 1 sommelier. And I think that it's very important, right? The wrong pairing can ruin a meal, and the right pairing can accentuate a meal. And now that's not to say that there's one specific wine that'll go with one specific dish. I think there are a lot of different wines that can pair very well, but I think having that knowledge, and having someone with that knowledge who can talk to guests and really extrapolate what they're looking for and be able to accentuate things is extremely important. And especially in a community like this, there are a lot of people that live in this community that have a very extensive wine knowledge. And so I think that they appreciate having someone who can walk them through a menu or figure out, what their likes or dislikes are, or who can suggest something to pair well with whatever meal they're having. I think can really take, again, the experience, which is what we're about. You can go anywhere and have a meal. That's not, while we provide that, we want to provide a little bit more than that. We really want to provide an experience, and having someone with that wine knowledge is, I think, super important.
And staying on that theme with my last question, I'm from Joliet, where fine dining is about as rare as a Chicago Cub World Championship. But the question I have is the goal of any, in my opinion, the goal of any fine dining chef owner is a Michelin star. Is that is that a goal of yours?
Yeah, for a long time, it probably was. I will be honest with you, the Michelin Guide does not come out this far outside of the city. So it's not something that's realistic for us, at least right now. I've heard that there's debate on whether or not they're going to move further outside of Chicago into more of the Chicagoland. But, I think in my younger years, I was always working towards that. But I think I've honestly probably gotten closer to it by not making it my number one priority in the past. I think, sometimes you lose sight of just making great food in that strive to, get name recognition or whatever. And it's, it's not just Michelin, it's James Beard Awards, and it's all those things. Where I think, when you work too hard for one specific thing, you kind of lose sight on doing everything well. And so, my goal moving forward is to constantly be pushing myself and our staff to be better every single day. It's what we tell our staff here. It's let's take 1 foot forward every single day. And let's do something better today than we did yesterday. And if we do that, then I think, over time recognition comes.
Well, I'll just say this. Pat already told you about his experience, and I will echo his thoughts that my wife and I have dined in your restaurant and have had the same great experience that Pat had. And in fact, our first venture here on this podcast in discussing foods, restaurant preparation and such, you, sir, have provided our audience with a great insight into a chef and his craft, and we certainly appreciate your time today. Thanks so much.
Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate appreciate being a part of the podcast, and it was fun to finally sit down and talk to you guys.
The Graceful Ordinary, right along the Fox River in beautiful downtown St. Charles, for an extraordinary dining experience. And so Pat and I are looking forward to a few live podcasts here and there in the near future. And so be sure to look for us. Reminder that you can find us on the Fox Valley Magazine website, Facebook, Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast, and listen to all of our interviews, which now total above 20. And remember that if you are in business, you can consider a sponsorship to our presentations by contacting either of us. We'll be happy to send you to our marketing man, Kevin Ketchum at Fox Valley Magazine. So for our producer, Paul Stukel, who I know worked up an appetite listening to Chris Curren today, for Pat Crimmins, now in possession of a working phone and dangerous on Facebook and Twitter, this is Ray Rogina in mourning over the death of the Chicago White Sox. Wishing you all a pleasant day and week, hoping you are ready to see bursting colors as the leaves say goodbye for another year, and reminding you, as always, to be careful and be safe. So long, everyone.